Thanks, Sarah. Hi, guys. So Sarah's done most of it. Accountant by background. I always joke about being an accountant. I always joke if you gathered all the evidence and you held a court hearing, there wouldn't be enough evidence to convict me of being an accountant. But I did study as an accountant once. Been in business, had a software business, ended up selling that to a subsidiary of Telstra. Took about, a fair while off to grow up with the kids. Got sucked back into business about 5 years ago by a mate of mine, and I haven't forgiven him for it since. So most of my life really has been business. That's the truth. I kind of struggled with which topic I want to talk about the most tonight. Most people do their goal setting at January. I don't know why, New Year, they have these New Year's resolutions. I do all my goal setting now because I work on fiscal years. That's just the way I think. And it makes Christmas so much better because you don't have to stress about your goals. However, I decided not to do that because a topic I'll do that maybe next round after June, whenever I get on again. I wanted to talk tonight about forming teams because it's been a topic which we've been hot on for a while in our company, and I'll run you through a model which they teach in the MBAs. This is going to be a short talk. Tonight's about meeting people, so it's not going to be a long talk. But what it made me realise was it applies to what we're attempting to do, or what we are doing in this room and the Brisbane room. So we run two venues, and we regularly catch up with the collaborators in Queensland on videos, and we really do collaborate on a whole new level. And I'll talk a little bit more about that because if you're new tonight, you're going to go, "What's this guy talking about?" So I'll try and simplify it down. But Bruce Tuckman came up with this in '65, so this is not new. If any of you have done an MBA, you might have heard all this stuff. If you haven't done an MBA, save yourself the money. I can just tell you about it here. You have to do the MBA. But when you form teams, you kind of go through 4 stages. Sometimes a 5th stage they talk about for temporary teams. I'm just going to stick to the 4 tonight. So the first stage is just forming, where people learn about each other. And then you move into a more interesting stage, which sometimes a lot of people don't get past, which is the storming stage, where everyone's challenging everyone. There's a little bit of push and shove going on, and often distrust. And then there's a norming stage where you start to really learn how to work together. And then there's the performing stage. And you'll see on the right, I've got high level of supervision in the storming and norming stage, and once you get to the performing stage, you don't have to, the delegation's already happened. In fact, I probably should have put delegation up the top rather than down the bottom, but I was trying to get to the point that it's low delegation. You've delegated everything off. You don't have to worry about people in the performing stage if you've done it right, which is one of the big mistakes I see generally in corporates in Australia. I'm astounded at how unbelievably incapable senior management are to delegating in certain corporations. We're dealing with a couple of big European companies at the moment, 2 big French ones, household names, and a very large supermarket chain who's about to bust into Australia. And there's one guy we're dealing with who's 26. He's here by himself because everything's been delegated to him because he's been through this process. And it just astounds me. Ben's not here tonight, but I've been talking to a guy in this room who's 130% year to date on budget. Sales guy. Anyone, is this good? And they're putting him on a performance management program because he hasn't ticked all the activity boxes and all these other things they're worried about. So they're focused on ticking these boxes and trying to manage this guy within an inch of his life, and he's producing 138% to budget. I'm going, sorry, that hurt. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, duh. So these are the kind of the team formation stages, and what happens is the team effectiveness actually goes down as you're forming your team, because the ones who are effective get sucked into dealing with the ones who are ineffective, and then you've got to try and bring them up and storm through all the pushback stage, get them norming, and then you start getting that performing stage where you really start to get team performance going. And that applies to this room. So I'll relate it back in a little while. So if you look at it, and this is just straight out of the Bruce Tuckwell manual, people turn up. So you've turned up tonight, and like, what's this all about? And social, and we're all very pleasant, and we look keen, and we're all very friendly, and this looks interesting, and and under our breath we're going, what's going on here? And who are these people? And everyone's trying to kind of feel out what the thing's about. And we stick to safe topics. So if you think about it in the corporate world and you put project teams together, you never put in an ERP or done any dirty big project, you're like, right Alan? Right Mike. Right, then you get the storming stage, which is the really interesting stage where you get people in the room who, he doesn't know what he's bloody talking about. This idiot, this moron who's leading, he's got no idea. You get all those kinds of things going on in the storming stage. You get people who are passive aggressive. They hold back information because they think it gives them power. There's all this sort of kind of stuff that goes on. You get conflict, a bit of competition, a bit of I'm better than them, all that kind of stuff, and often high emotion. Norming is very interesting. So we've been watching these processes in our office, and we don't have, our business model is, Adrian's laughing, we don't have employees in our office, we have partners and everyone shares in, it's a revenue share model, so there's no employees and you do this or you're out. It's like, okay, how are we going? But it's still an interesting situation because we have mentors in the office, someone who's looking after somebody else, and so there's always a stage of where you're learning how to work together. The storming stage, and it can be very difficult where you've got two strong characters, two of the same character types. If any of you have read that book, Personality Plus, if you haven't, some of the collaborators here will put you onto it because it's good lay language. It's just talking about the personality styles, it's like a psych test. If you get two cholerics, two powerful personalities, it's kind of figuring out the strengths and the weaknesses of one so that you can kind of work together. And the whole thing with relationships is work to people's strengths, skirt their weaknesses. Most people, most management, most delegators ignore everything that is your strength and tell you what you didn't do right. Right, AJ? Right, Mike. Now you get that, you fix that up, rather than ignoring, you're 138% of budget. Well, that's good. Let's focus on that. I mean, you with me? So, the storming stage is very, very difficult stage, and a lot of teams don't go well or don't even succeed. Who's ever been on an IT project? Right. What is the current percentage of IT projects which fail or succeed? The last time I heard, what are the numbers?
85%.
85%? Now, why do they fail? Well, you could argue a lot of things. I come from an IT background. I designed and implemented ERPs all over the world. And, what is it? Is it lack of goal? Is it lack of focus? No. It's a whole bunch of things. But it gets down to end goal. What's the goal? I'm a big believer without a goal you've had it, and then forming the right team. And I'm a big believer in small teams. I did an ERP project for a large corporate where they ended up putting in SAP, which different debate, and they had a team of 100 and something people. I'm going, oh my God, this thing is going to it's like I'm not a believer in those kind of things. And in fact, if you read Tuckwell's notes, he talks about small teams. So storming stage, very, very important. It's a high tension stage, but it's critical if you ever want to get effectiveness in a team, and a lot of teams never get past it. And it ends up in a shit fight. Norming is, right, you're cool, I'm cool, you've got strengths, I've got strengths, let's work together, let's see how we make this go. Usually by the time you get to the norming stage, people have realised you're the leader, you're definitely the leader, you know what you're talking about, I'll follow you because you've proven to me that I can trust you, you're trustworthy. So it's that whole integrity thing. You do what you say you're going to do, you follow up on what you say you're going to do, you treat me well as a human being. All those kinds of things happen in that norming stage, and everyone starts to become supportive and starts to buy into the end goal. Remember that word goal. And then the performing stage is where you literally, and this is the key to the leadership part of it, let go and you delegate and you just let them go and do it. And so I used to attend meetings where we had a stoplight, set of lights, traffic lights at the meeting, and there were about 30 of us in this room, and it was like, green, everything's good. Amber, things aren't great, but I got it under control. Red, I need help. And the guy who was leading it, who was the CFO, said, not interested in hearing about your green, not interested about your successes. They're fantastic, you're successful. If there's anything on the edge of amber going red, I want to hear about it, otherwise just tell me about your red and how I can help. In other words, the implied statement was he had delegated authority and he trusted the team in the room of senior project managers. First time I'd seen it in a large corporate, and it succeeded too. Very interesting. It was an interesting time. And in that performing stage, it's pretty healthy, and you get team leaders or team project managers wanting to help each other, and how can I help and how can I make sure. So I'll give you the example that I was involved in. We were putting in a new ERP at the same time as we were moving a distribution centre for about $100 million worth of stock and about 70,000 SKUs from the eastern suburbs to somewhere west of near Penrith, Erskine Park. And do you remember when the Pope came out? It was when the Pope came out. So we had to find routes for the trucks that would avoid the whole Pope thing, where people were turning up in their hundreds of thousands to the Sydney Cricket Ground and blocking all the traffic in the eastern suburbs. So we were building a warehouse. We had to put in all the IT. We had to get all the infrastructure right. We had to get the whole thing laid, done, working. We had to get all the systems right. We had to work out how to continue to deliver to customers while all this happened and not screw the whole thing up, and get the stock from one spot to the other and not have anything go wrong. And by the way, it delivered to the whole of Australia from that DC. It was an interesting exercise. That's why I've got no hair. Joking. But it gives you an idea of when you get a team together that's performing, and you can actually, you work effectively, and it's like when you get much more output from a group pulling together than you do from each individual if they're just standing alone, if you understand that, the triple braided cord, that biblical saying. So that's kind of the Tuckwell team formation. And look, I've pulled this straight out of the manual, so it's no big deal. You can go and read up on it. But what's interesting is this. If you look at this room, and some of you are new, but I think you've all done some sort of networking, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But the purpose of this room is to go way beyond that. It's to get a second dimension of networking where we help each other to understand what it is we're looking for, how we want to get ahead, what our goals are, and then we start to collaborate. And it's a very cross-fertilisation kind of a program for those who want to do it. Some people just like to turn up, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. And when you start to get to that second dimension where someone knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who says, oh, you need to go and see someone over here because they can help you because I know that they're doing X, Y, and Z. And you don't get that in a normal, hi, I'm Mike, hi Adrian, what do you do? And we hand cards, and it's just a one-to-one type thing. So I'm picking on AJ tonight, sorry. So, this is out of the manual, but if you look at forming, characterised by uncertainty about the group's purpose, structure and leadership. If you're here tonight, you're going, okay, what is this? Who are these guys? And is there something behind this? So Sarah said, no hidden agenda, no ulterior motive, we're not trying to flog your product. No, there's none of that. But you've got to work your way through that. Everyone's here the first time, see what the behaviour of the people in the room are like. Is it acceptable? Do I like this? Does it resonate with me? There's all that kind of stuff. It's complete when people begin to think of themselves as part of it. So for people so Sarah said, who's been here more than 3 times? Well, if people have been here more than 3 times, they kind of feel like, yep, I belong, and they've moved to a different stage. The storming stage is someone says, I like this, I get the framework around it, the framing of building a high trust collaborative network, but then people are like, well, I don't know whether I want someone to help me and be a mentor, and I don't know that I want to be a collaborator, and what is all this collaboration about? There's all those kinds of things going on, and often, particularly my personality type, I'm one of those people who hates to be told what to do by everyone except my wife, who's sitting down the back. Because I'm not silly. All right, and so it's resisting that perceived control that maybe a group imposes upon me. So people have got to work their way through that. There's no control, there's no group control, but what we're looking to do is duplicate ourselves by helping other people learn the process that we've learned by trial and error as to how we can be more effective in building our own selfish collaborative network. We build networks for ourselves by helping other people, which might be a strange concept, but once you understand the duplication power of that and the exponential power of it, it's really good. So when there's people go, yep, I trust you, you're my collaborator, tell me what to do, help me, show me what to do, I'll work with you, and you can show me how to become more effective, is kind of what happens in the storming stage in this group. And then norming is, I don't know, Kieran's probably just a good example. I mean, Kieran's been working through with David, have you?
Yeah.
Working with, so he's been working through with David, and you never knew David before you came here, did you?
No, never.
Right, so Kieran's kind of been through that stage, and he's gone, right, okay, good, what do I do? And he's starting to learn how to use LinkedIn, he's starting to invite people, and he's starting to learn the process of building a collaborative. I'm trying to pick on you, mate. I just thought of you just there because someone said you had some people tonight. So I thought, okay, good example. So, so he understands how the relationships work, starting to get cohesiveness with it, stronger sense of team identity, and he's now checking in with David all the time. Now, why would David do this for nothing? Well, if Kieran brings 10 really good people and he trains or teaches 10 really good people, which is a process in itself, there's now 10 people that David didn't have to bring, who all of us together can help each other to build a high trust collaborative network. So it's totally selfish of David to help Kieran. Totally selfish. Just doesn't look like that when you first come into the room. It's like, really? Yes, you selfish, self-centered, shame on you person, David. So that's kind of the norming stage, and that's complete when Kieran knows what to do, he's rocking and rolling, he doesn't need to check in with David all the time, he knows how to use everything, he knows the tools, he's just using the people in the room to introduce people around, and he's following the process, he's part of the collaboration video conferences we have, he's dealing with the guys in Brisbane, he starts to get to know who the guys in Brisbane are, we start to get cross-fertilisation between Brisbane, Sydney, etc, 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 and that's when you get the performance stage, that's when you start to get incredibly good results. And I was on a video conference on Saturday with different thing called the Consulting Sub-Hub, but anyway, that's a were you there on that? Yeah, you was on that. Yeah, it was a pretty good meeting, that one, and it was interesting because you see this consultant does this and this consultant does that, and it's like, holy dooly, there's some heavy hitters on this little program, and you start to get to know who they are, and then you start to realise, yeah, I could point them here and I could point them there, but also it's what comes back. And so there's a girl up there who I met the last time I spoke up there, whose name's Taylor. And she's a finance broker, and finance broking at the moment's a very interesting little business to be in. Right? I think Beck's in that, aren't you, Beck? Yeah. So anyway, I was fascinated to hear it because, in fact, your name was mentioned because we should get Beck to talk to Taylor, because Taylor came into the hub, I don't know, somewhere last year, and got her head around the whole idea. And she was working under the umbrella of one of her parents, I forget, mother, father, but has got 15 brokers in the business and wanted to break away and do her own thing. And basically he's been able to do that because of the referral business that's come to her through the hub. But she's done that because of what she's put in, not what it's come from as a result of what she's put in. And so she's, in one particular case, writing 3 deals a week just in one particular space that's coming from the room. So it's interesting. You were on the call. Yeah, you were. Yeah. So interesting. So my whole point is this performing stage is where you're getting results. The goal is to be low supervision, low delegation or high delegation. Go do what you want. That's why that graph was a bit weird. Sorry about that. And there's a strong, a strong sense of team purpose. And it's very interesting when that starts to work because all sorts of stuff comes out of it. So I was speaking last week just about someone tonight's going to talk about what they get out of the room. I think it's AJ. But what I've realised is I spend most of my time working up a sweat as to how I can help other people in the room, because I don't ever talk about what I do so much. I'm more interested in what they do, how I can help them. And a lot of people who come to this room aren't business people. A lot of these people who come to this room are salespeople, they're BDMs, they're employees, but they realise the value, the unbelievable value of building a network and how it will help them in some way in the future, even if they're not sure what their goals are today. The reason I'm so big on goals is I just don't believe you're effective without goals. And I set a goal earlier last year, and I've been quite frustrated. It was a big hairy, audacious goal, which was to double the business in a very short space of time. And the long and the short of it was, it took 4 introductions or 4 levels of relationship in this room that led me to the right person, which looks like it's going to be the one, if that makes sense. Now, it's taken a year and a whole bunch of this one led me to this one, led me to this one. So it's something I've got out of it. But the truth is I spend most of my time busting my chops to try and put back into the room and help with the room. And I spoke to Jeff on the phone today on a teleconference trying to help one of the collaborators in Queensland. So if you're new here tonight, maybe that helps you a little bit. Maybe that just confuses the socks off you, but probably not. If you talk to the person who brought you here, we don't care whether you're employed, you're self-employed, you're a BDM, you're a salesperson, you own a business, you want to own a business. What we know is anyone who understands the value of building a high trust network will just about get anything they ever want, but most people don't understand the value of building it now. I have an untold number of people come through this room who go, "Hi, I've got a startup." Oh, great. Good. What have you invented? I've invented this fantastic idea, and they usually are all fantastic ideas. And I said, before you go any further, let me guess. Your problem is you've got no customers. How did you know? Right? Because everyone's got a great idea, but the acquisition of customers is usually the not so easy thing. So every person who comes to this room who's got a startup, I say, riddle me this. If you'd built a high trust network, and let's say you'd brought 10 people into this room who are the right individuals for building a high trust network, and they'd brought 10 people to the room, and they'd brought 10 people to the room, what would the size of your network be? And he goes, I don't know, 1,000? I go, that'll do. If you had a high trust network of 1,000 people, do you think you'd struggle for someone to lead you to someone? He goes, no. So a particular guy came in and he had his really neat piece of software, and it's in the retail space, and he's only got one customer. And I said, so what do you need? He said, I need high end of town retail. I said, good, okay. And I introduced him to the high end of town retail because I've got some of those customers. And I didn't do it on night one because there wasn't enough trust, but I did over time, and I've never seen him since because he's busy. Because now he's busy being sucked in with that big customer, which is another problem in itself. But my whole point is, the value of a high trust network is not to be underestimated. The value of how you go about forming relationships, the process which we follow, follows more or less this, not that we've ever discussed it in this forum, it's just I realised, because we use this kind of structure at work and we're patient. The storming stage can take a long time sometimes, and sometimes more than 12 months if you believe in the people and you've got to help them work through. Sometimes the storming stage can be a week. Not very often, in my experience. But I realised it's the same kind of structure here. So hopefully that helps. I wanted to keep it short. Oh, damn, I was hoping to finish before 8:30. Anyway, I'll hand you back to Sarah, and we'll plenty of time to yap, and we'll meet and talk around the room. Thanks very much.